Welcome to Entrepreneurs International Network, where entrepreneurs learn, network, and grow. I'm Roger Killen, the organizer. Today, Isabelle, Mercier, and Deidre Tansey are going to be training us on how to convert prospects into clients using the twin tools of brand positioning and messaging. I have a personal question for each of you. Deidre, you get to go first. What is your greatest accomplishment?
My greatest accomplishment is my 6 children. I have 2 sons and 4 daughters who range in age from 26 down to 16-year-old twins. And they are incredible. And I'm very grateful they chose me to be their mama. And they all are very different. 3 of them are in their own, businesses, education, moving on in the world already, and 3 are still at home. So it's been a busy, busy life, and I look forward to watching them move on and do things on their own. But yeah, it's definitely been my greatest honor and accomplishment to be their guide, not much more than that. They all were born with their own personalities, that's for sure. Yep.
Wow, that's fantastic. That means between Isabelle, you, and me, we have 6 children.
That's correct. You got it. So look, I had 2 for each of you. Isn't that nice of me? I was just replacing. That was.
Isabelle, your personal question is this: what is the best decision you have ever made?
I have made many, many great decisions, but I want to share 2 quickly. One, at 18 years old, I fell in love with my partner, Margarita, and I had to go through some kerfuffle to move through with that change of life. But we are celebrating 30 years on December 5th together. So that was a massive thank you. Yes, 30 years. And the second best decision is when I said yes to you, Roger, for a TEDx talk at TEDx Stanley Park. I did not want to do a TEDx talk. It was not on my bucket list. And he bugged me for a few years. And I eventually said yes, nearly killed me, and loved every minute of it. And now it has almost 3 million views. So really great decision.
Wow. And what has flowed out of your TEDx talk? What has happened to you professionally because of it?
Wow. To make a really long story short, basically, when you ride the brand, since we're talking about positioning and branding tonight, the brand of TEDx, it has definitely given the perception of a lot more credibility. I mean, I've always had the same credibility. I didn't change. But it literally has brought in massive opportunities, the opportunities that I would never have had before had it not been for this TEDx and me, putting myself out on the skinny branches for it.
Great. Well, I remember your talk like it was yesterday. How could anybody forget? Okay, let's get to business. The business, perhaps let's start with some definitions. Branding, positioning, and messaging. Mm-hmm. Ladies, please define what you mean by these terms.
Yeah, and since positioning and branding is in my neck of expertise, and social media and engagement is in Deidre's, I'll probably step in more towards the beginning questions here. The difference between branding, positioning, and messaging. Branding is how people feel about you. It's both qualitative and quantitative. It's a culture and visuals. You said it earlier, Roger. You said when people think of EIN, they think of accountability, being on time, delivering. So that is what you want your brand to exude. You want to design what you want it to stand for, and you want to live that so people recognize it as such. Positioning is how people view you in the world and why they should choose you regardless of price. So that's how you position yourself in the world, how they see you, and why they should choose you. And messaging is what you communicate and how you communicate it so it resonates. It's a question of resonance, and you have to hear from your clients and prospects. I hear this often, and I hear, Isabel, did you bug my house? I think you bugged my house. That means that my messaging resonates and actually really grabs them because they're feeling that. I'm sharing what they're needing to hear in order for them to recognize that they align or they want or they connect with my content. So said differently, quickly, branding is what the word is to be spread. Positioning is how you're actually being seen and viewed in the world with that word. And the messaging is how you're crafting your message so that your personality comes out, so people recognize you and want more from you. So is that making sense?
Yep, that makes great sense. Thank you. Attendees, if you have a question for either Isabelle or Deidre, type it in the chat and I'll pass it on. Okay, second question. A tiny little percentage of businesses ever make it to more than $1 million in revenue. Can you explain why that is?
Yeah, the majority of small business owners are really, really, really good at their craft, but they're not actually set up to grow and then scale, right? You got to grow to the 6 figures. And then when you start hitting the 7 figures, that's more of a question still of growth, but possibly now setting ourselves up for scaling. So most people don't have a clear brand DNA, what they stand for, who they want to work with, what problems they solve, what makes them very different, what makes you, right, unique and different. A lot of people think they're clear about that, and yet they're not. Quality isn't a big important factor in a brand. Of course it's important, but it's not a differentiator. It's not anything that really sets you apart. It's more of an expectation, right? So first, people are not as clear about what their brand stands for and how to communicate that to the world. And they also don't have an architecture for growth. So there are 8 key areas for growth. The brand and culture being one of them, money and KPIs, sales and marketing, mindset and inner game. There's 8 of those key areas. And when those key areas, a lot of them are suffering, it's very hard to grow, and it's impossible to scale and very hard to grow.
Okay, lovely. I'm sure maybe I won't assume. Are you going to be talking about how our attendees can gain that clarity that the vast majority of businesses do not have? Is that coming a little bit later?
Yes.
Okay, great. So my next question is, why are positioning and messaging so important to a business that aspires to grow and thrive?
Well, if people can't find you, then they can't get to know you, right? And if people don't get to know you, then they can't learn from you nor buy from you. And if people don't resonate with you, that's messaging, right? If they don't resonate with you, then they simply won't connect at all. So it's important for your message to be communicated in a way to the right people, in a way that will actually get them to say, where the hell have you been all my life? I have been looking for you or for that solution my entire life. And then later in part of those other questions, we'll talk a little bit more about what are those key ingredients that are needed, and how you can start really working through at crafting so that you can have. Now, mind you, having said that, Roger, this is what I do for a living. And I have people to do this for me, because when you're in the frame, or you can't see the picture, right? When you're in the pickle jar, you can't see the ingredients. So you got to have someone who knows about brand positioning and marketing and branding to be able to help you craft these. Otherwise, you're too close to you're too close to it. It's hard for you to tell what actually is potent and what is not.
Well, what you're saying resonates hugely with me, because the single biggest challenge for me as a mentor of TEDx speakers is to get them to get to the point of clarity about what they want to talk, believe it or not. And I know I'm really being buffaloed, whenever I ask the question, what do you want to talk about? Try giving me the answer in 2 sentences and I get 2 paragraphs.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I know they have no idea what it is. They have a vague, fuzzy idea.
Yeah.
And you'd think they would have crystal clarity. Such is not the case.
But that's the same thing, Roger, with business, because when I say to someone, what makes you different? Why would I choose you instead of anyone else, even if you were more expensive than anyone else? And people go, yeah, I know exactly. And then they spend half an hour trying to explain something to me. And I'm like, you've used 1,000 words and I still don't know what makes you different, right? So clarity allows for simplicity of communication. When people are not communicating simply, often it's a lack of clarity.
Right. I can relate to that. Now, on that note, what does it take for somebody to make a decision, a buying decision to buy Sandra's services or Shawnice's services or Nick's services? What mental process do they go through to end up with those particular service providers?
There's a lot of things that happen, first of all, in this is a big question. First, people have got to really connect with who you are. Like people that want to buy from you, they first have to understand that you understand their problem. There is a problem there. We call it Pain Island. And so you understand that they're on Pain Island, and you have to reiterate and really show them that you understand where they're at. And you also clearly understand where they want to be. We call that Pleasure Island. So they're on Pain Island. There's a problem or there's a missed opportunity somewhere. And they're wanting to be somewhere where they can leverage that missed opportunity or fix this particular problem. Once and only once they can trust that you get the issue and the problem and you actually have understood them, only then can you start talking about a solution. The biggest mistake I see is people go right away to the solution. If I said to you, Roger, today, hey, Roger, I have a great solution for you, you'd be like, great, but what's it solving? What problem is it solving, right? So a lot of people don't poke enough where it hurts first to ensure that they have all the information that's needed in order to be of assistance, of be helpful. From there, then it's about how you explain your solution. Do you have a framework? Do you have a methodology? Is there something unique about how you do things that would get people to, that's the tipping point, right? An X factor, which is what it takes for people to tip over and choose you instead of someone else is they know that you understand their pain. They can feel that you have the credibility and the knowledge and the expertise to solve that problem. The solution you're communicating to them makes sense to them. And you're very clear about your process, your methodology, your unique tipping point for people to go, you had me at hello, but now that you've said this, now that you've explained to me your methodology, and I'll give you an example, at LeapZone, we have the Trifecta Methodology, which is our X factor. We work with people on positioning, personality, and performance. And all the 8 key areas for growth that I've shared a few earlier, we look under the hood of a business and we work on these 8 key areas for growth, not to just grow a business or a brand, but to grow themselves and to start scaling and growing their business, not just from a branding perspective, but from a performance profitability perspective, which means that when you work with us at LeapZone, you have a branding expertise working with you, a marketing expertise working with you, business growth and coaching expertise working with you. That's an X factor. A lot of people would have to hire 5, 6 different people to actually get all of what we offer. So when we explain this to clients I have an infographic that helps me explain this. People go, wow, I've been looking for someone like you for a long time. So you got to be very clear about what problems you solve, how you're going to resonate with that, and how you're positioning your your solution matters. When I was a kid, I was asked, my parents wanted me to position anything. If I wanted to go to soccer instead of dance, it was mostly the opposite. But if I wanted to go to dance instead of soccer, I had to position, I had to pitch my parent, and I had to talk about the risks of yes, the risks of them saying yes, and the risk and the cost of them saying no. That's all part of positioning, right? So, but when you're clear on these bits and pieces, you win.
You're using the terminology X factor.
Yeah.
Would most of us know what that is if we use the term differentiating factor?
Yes, so a differentiating factor, a money-making edge, an X factor is all very similar. It means pretty much the same thing. It means what's the one thing that actually would make me go, I want you instead of someone else, and here's why.
Okay, great. Now, question for the audience, the attendees, would anyone like to unmute and offer their X factor or their differentiating factor? What makes you different from all the competitors in your space? The one big thing. I'm going to volunteer somebody. Nick, take it away.
Yeah. All right. So we make an air cleaner, and we are the greenest solution, most environmentally friendly solution for that type of air cleaning product.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Nick. Anyone else like to offer their X factor? Nancy?
As a sales psychologist, I work with entrepreneurs who hate being salesy to help them get more business.
And so what's your X factor within that? That's more what you do. How do you do it differently than anybody else?
By helping that individual gain the confidence and feel comfortable with the words they use to connect authentically and quickly with prospects.
Okay, so do I have time?
You have permission if you were asking for permission.
Did you say I have it?
I'm giving you permission.
Okay.
You're asking for time.
Thank you.
I don't know if you have the time.
Well, it's going to be very fast. Let me tell you, Nancy, that your X factor, again, when you re-explained it, it's not an X factor. That is what the transformation you are helping them have. Your X factor, in my opinion, would be that you're a psychologist, which means you understand human behavior, and you probably have a specific process or a framework that you could name and make your own. If you know TFAL, right? TFAL and the non-slip pan, TFAL has a process or a technology called Teflon. I was gonna say, I forget, Teflon. So Teflon is TFAL's X factor. So for you, I would like for you to push your X factor to really process it more as a framework or something unique. You have a 4-pronged framework, and based on your expertise of being a psychologist, then or a sales psychologist, you actually help them. So the confidence is the transformation of your X factor, not your X factor.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Deidre, would you like to play with us? You've been very quiet. Here's your question.
I have been quiet because my questions are near to the end, but yes. I'm always willing to jump in.
Well, I'm always happy to go out of order.
Okay,
go
out of order.
Tell us, what is the biggest myth that entrepreneurs hold about social media?
There's a few. I can't just talk about one because there's a couple, but I guess one of them is it doesn't apply to my industry. People will often say to me, "Oh, I don't need social media. You know, no one who's looking for my product is on social." Well, you're wrong because there's billions of people on social media. And just in the last 2 years, the digital transformation that has taken place because of COVID alone has basically, by 6 years on average, jumped up the initiatives that were in place. So that means that things that companies have been designing for 2027 to be digitally aware have already happened. So if your industry, if your company, whether you're a solopreneur or you have a multi-billion-dollar industry, if you are not present in some way, shape, or form digitally, you are missing the bus. So it's important to have your digital language available. The other thing would be that you have to be viral or have 7 million followers. I guess it's just not true. It's all about being relevant to your ideal customer and being able to listen to number one, listen, to actually hear what people are saying, and then to be available to solve their problems and to, as Isabelle said, understand what your brand DNA, what it is that you actually offer, what your X factor is, and be able to communicate that clearly to people. So being viral is being a one-hit wonder. It's not necessary to be an awesome business person. The goal of social media is not to do social media well. It's to do social media well to do business well. So you have to understand how the process works. And I guess the other myth I wanted to talk about was that it's not measurable. And if you know what it is that you're looking for, if you tie your marketing, not just social media, but all your marketing goals to what your larger and more strategic business goals are, you will know what you have to measure. And it's about making a plan and listing out the things that you want to see growing or you want to see increased, and creating a clear outline of exactly what it is that you need to measure. There's so many times when people will just, throw enough crap at the wall and hope some of it will stick. And that's just not the way to do social media. You need to have a plan. You need to have an architecture. There needs to be some kind of strategy and steps to follow. So I think those are probably the biggest ones.
And that's a little bit like business, right? It's the same thing. I mean, you could wing yourself to business, or you can actually have a growth plan with processes and automations in place to help you scale. I mean, it's the same thing.
Well, I mean, social media, if you don't have social, as we know, as part of your business plan, as part of your systems in place, then you are going to be, behind. It's just a fact these days. And I'm amazed at how many people still say to me, oh yeah, no, in my industry, nobody's on social media. I'm sorry, they are. Hate to break it to you. Doesn't matter what you do or where you are in the world, you need to be present.
Deidre, I'm just giving you a crystal ball now. 5 years from now, what do you think we entrepreneurs will be talking about as what's going on right now, 2027 or 8? What are the trends? Where are we going with social media?
I think that's a really interesting question, Roger. I think we will have calmed down a little bit, for one thing. If you look at any type of communication in history, there's always several different phases that it goes through. So there's sort of the tech life cycle. So there's euphoria, hysteria, and balance. And if you look back at when, newspapers came on the scene, people were like, this is ridiculous. How can we read all this? This is controlling, this is taking over, we can't handle this. And then TV jumped in, and people, it was radio and then TV. There's always that craziness at the beginning where everyone's excited about it and everyone jumps in. And then there's that level of critique that comes by, and everyone is, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And I think right now we are in a phase where people are not taking control of their own social media, whether it be personal or business. And I love the Brene Brown quote that says, social media is just like fire. You can use it to burn down the barn or to cook a great meal. And I think what we need to do as entrepreneurs and leaders in our community is take control over tools like social media. It is not destroying society. It is simply a tool. The people who use it might be using it ineffectively or for their own evil ways, but I truly believe that with enough people that use it effectively and with some education and with some clear intent, that we can take it back, and that hyperactive fear will calm down. So I think in the future, it will just be another tool to communicate.
Yeah, I was going to say,
it's not going away. It's not going away.
Like, years ago, we all operated from massive big computers. A phone was a phone. And, and now you can actually run an empire, a small empire off an iPhone. I mean, an iWatch, right? So it'll just be more of a way of life. And good.
Okay, good. Question back to you now, Isabelle. It took you all of 30 seconds listening to Nancy to figure out her X factor, her differentiating factor.
Yep.
What can our attendees, our 53 attendees, do to gain that kind of insight into what their own X factors might be?
If you have a service-based business and you are a genius-based business, as in like you're not selling a product, you're selling your time and you're a genius for a living, it's really challenging, because what you think is pedantic is most likely something that is so unique about you that people would absolutely want. And Scott is laughing his head off. So I don't know if it has to do with us here or something else.
I think so. He's looking over there.
He's funny. So the key is to really understand I'll give you a good example. We worked with a real estate agent a few years ago. And this real estate agent used to be a private investigator in a previous life. And as she was organizing her process for her X Factor with me, she was so detailed and so organized, and she would ask questions that are so beyond the four walls of this house. And I was like, what did you used to do in your previous life? And she's like, I used to be a private investigator. It's nor here nor there. I'm like, no. I want to know more about that, because of her training, her expertise, and who she was, we were able to create a whole process to really customize her framework to be able to utilize her entire life's expertise to make her X Factor really unique. She is one of the fastest growing real estate person in the Vancouver area, and people love her because of her methodology. So first, you gotta remove from your mind that the things that you're really, really, really good at are possibly not important, or I should just give them away because it's so easy for me. That's not easy for everybody. Then the other part is to really look at what is different and unique about you. What are you tired of dealing with? I'll give you another great example. There's a Vancouver company called Providence Security. Mike Jagger is the owner of that company. And his X Factor became his promise, and his X Factor became a 5-minute response time in a sea of 2.5 hours. So a security company, if your keypad in Canada anyways, if your keypad rings and there's a security breach, police time is about 2 to 2.5 hours to get to you. And your very security company, usually between half an hour to an hour and a half. Well, that's a lot of time. So he went, there's a gap. People expect this and everybody's giving this. I want to give a 5-minute response time. Do you think that was easy for him to do? No, he had to invent technology. Now, not all X Factor are required to flip an industry on their head or create technology, but some do. So their X Factor is 5 minutes response time. They've created technology for it. They're actually delivering that. They're the fastest security company, growing company in North America as a result of that. But what they did is they looked at what are people expecting and wanting? What are they not being delivered and paying for? Where is the gap, and how can I fill that gap with something that is already, like Nancy earlier, she says she's a sales psychologist. Now, I don't know her background. However, positioning it this way gives her an advantage of, it gives me a perception that she understands people. She has training to actually help people move through a stuck point. and it's logical, right? So that's the key, is there's a gap there. There's a gap in an industry or a gap in what people, your ideal clients, are wanting. And either people are not delivering on that gap, or they're delivering in a way that's not completely giving a result or resonating with these people. So by looking at the gap, you're able to actually fill the gap. So in Portland, there's a spin lounge business, which is a laundromat. And she saw a gap. The gap is people went there to wash their clothes and then waited there, for an hour and a half, wasting time, or leaving, going to a cafe and coming back. And she's like, well, why don't I merge the two? Like, why don't I keep, these people are coming to my business, why don't I keep them longer? So she created Spin Lounge, where it's a lounge. You can actually have business meetings while you actually have your clothes clean. So again, it's merging different needs and geniuses to provide a better client experience or better solve a problem.
Thank you. Deidre,
I just wanted to add to that. And it's the biggest challenge that people have with their social media is exactly what Isabelle said. They think that what they have to say is too pedantic. It's not enough. It's not enough to capture somebody. So instead of just saying, I'm really good at this because of this, this, and this, and saying it clearly without any buzzwords or without any sales speak, that's what people are looking for. You're not looking to entice everyone. They're not looking for tricks or, you don't need to attract 8 million people. You need to attract the 1,000 people that are interested in what you have and need what you are great at.
For today, anyways. 1,000 for today, anyways.
1,000 today. So it's very interesting when I'm talking to a new client and they say it all the time. They say it to Isabelle, they say it to me. Well, what I have to say is not that, I don't know what my content is for social media. And I'm like, your content is what you do well.
And I want to add something there, Deidre, because you're opening a really good point. If I said, I'm a really good coach and people love to work with me, that's one thing. But if I utilize my X factor and say, well, tell you what, I have 30 years experience. And as a result of that experience, I've created a process called the Leap Zone Trifecta, where when we look under the hood, we look at positioning, personality, and performance, and we look at the 8 key areas for growth. And then you start explaining that. That is no longer just talking about your genius. You're bottling your genius in a way that you can talk about it in a way that it's almost like someone else's product. It's much easier to sell someone else's thing than your own thing, right? Because selling your own thing, especially if it's your genius, it's vulnerable because people can say no to it. It's actually vulnerable. And doing what Tefal did with Teflon, that's a way of actually bottling something in a way that people will not only see the value of it, but recognize the genius in it. That is more than just saying what you're good at. I hope that little extra bit here has resonated with you guys.
Thank you. A couple of questions from our attendees. Katsumi wants to know, what would be the best way to go about finding the gap in different businesses? That's a little bit beyond the scope of this talk, but would one of you like to quickly offer your words of wisdom?
Yeah, and Deidre, you can top up. At the end of the day, it's about looking at what people are complaining about. And this in your industry, you work with clients day in and day out. You know what they're complaining about over and over again. So that's one way. Another way is to actually poll the people that utilize this service or product from someone else and really ask them what's working well for them and what's clunky with it. And you'll get a lot of information there for sure.
Sam asks, how do you make people aware of a new category?
Yeah, what do you mean by
based marketing?
Do you mean by category? Do you mean like a new category in the world, like a new industry? What is that? What you mean?
Sam, would you unmute and explain what you mean by the question, please?
Okay, he said yes. Yeah, by claiming it. So you have to actually invent a new word. For example, mompreneurs. That word was invented by someone, and she just went, or I'm assuming it's a she She just went, okay, I'm an expert for mompreneurs. And suddenly she's positioned herself as an expert for mompreneurs. So you first need to declare it, and hopefully there's a bit of creativity around it, around naming something or claiming. This is why the Teflon of Tefal, they've created a new category for that level of nonstick pan, right? Deidre, anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, it just goes back to the pain island to pleasure island. It's noticing that if your new category is something that is going to solve that pain island and get people off of that, then it's the educationally based marketing and making sure that you are taking that new content, that new solution that you've now named and cleverly positioned, and educating people as to why that is the solution that they're looking for.
Deidre, you're on a roll. So here's the next question for you. What's the number one mistake that people make with regards to managing their social media accounts?
They forget to include themselves, which means I think what a lot of people do with social media is they think that they need to do what everybody else is doing. And they madly run around chasing shiny bells and whistles, trying to jump on the next train or hang on to the merry-go-round. Because let's face it, social changes so often and so quickly that we spend so much time trying to figure out what, you know, Facebook has done and Instagram has added and TikTok has changed, that we don't actually focus on the most important thing, which is showing up as ourselves. And so that's why, you know, we've designed a structure so that you can take the brand DNA or your X factor, the things that you've clearly figured out are your business and what you have to offer the world and how you uniquely solve problems, and share that with people on social media and not worry too much about, you know, what's going on over here. Yes, there are techniques and things that you need to know. And yes, there are ways you can grow your influence and your following and increase engagement. Absolutely, there are tools available to do that. And it's still the biggest mistake people make is trying to copy others, and just, they're so busy trying to figure out what the next best thing is. They never take any time to figure out what their best thing is.
Related as follow-on question, many people are not particularly social. It's just how they live their lives. For those people, what advice would you give them in terms of using social media?
That is an awesome question, and that is my secret sauce. I specialize working with people who are not particularly social. You would not believe how many times we have clients coming into Leap Zone and saying, you know, I'm an amazing business person and I run an incredible, you know, business, but I hate social media and I'm just not going to do it. It's just not going to work for me. The bottom line is, it is a way of communicating, and being social is not necessarily, you don't have to share your social calendar. You don't have to get on there and tell people what you ate for breakfast in order to engage people about your business, but it's part of networking. And if you want to be a business in 2021, 2022 and forward, the bottom line is you need to be able to communicate what you do, why, and to the right people. So it's not about something fluffy or, you know, about getting your next speaking engagement tomorrow. It's literally about building a community that knows, loves, and trusts you and wants to work with you. And I knew Isabelle was going to jump in. Go, Isabelle. I wasn't done.
I want to add and support, because there are ways. Being social doesn't mean that you're on Facebook Lives every day. It doesn't necessarily need to mean that. For someone like me, maybe. For someone like, you know, someone that's extrovert, they might want to do that. But there's ways to educate and to connect with people through educational based marketing, through a lead magnet, through a mini ebook, through a cheat sheet. There's a lot of ways to educate and connect with people without necessarily it being live or your face all the time, right? So there's different ways that you can explore.
It's about taking who you are and authentically connecting with people. And sometimes, I mean, the biggest thing with social these days is that it doesn't matter if you are a huge corporation or a solopreneur. our biggest commodity that people are asking for is number one, customer service, and number two, trust. So at some point, although you may not be social or an extrovert, you do have to be authentic and transparent enough to show up as yourself. And it, like Isabelle said, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a Facebook Live, but showing up and being a human is number one. I mean, social media is human to human. It doesn't matter what business it is. We're all just humans trying to connect with other humans. Mm-hmm. And when we remember that, it's a lot easier to market our business and to step up and show up in the world. Even if you look on LinkedIn, I guarantee you the most popular posts are when people share something about their lives or something personal. It is every single time. We are desperate for human connection. And if you overlook that when you're doing your marketing for your business, you are overlooking a big part of the psychology behind, connection. So. Right.
Well, that resonates with me because every TEDx talk really should have a personal story, because it is how human beings connect with each other. And vulnerability is also important. Okay, Isabelle, back to you. Let's talk about brand promise, and particularly why it's the kiss of death not to have one.
Yeah, many people, including large companies, large brands that you guys know, still don't have a promise. First of all, the promise is your measurable accountability, right? It's what bridges the gap between what people are wanting and what you're actually going to give them in terms of transformation or in terms of service or in terms of products. And not having a clear promise it's a kiss of death, because your content is going to resonate even less with people. So I'll give you an example. At Leap Zone, we promise clarity, pivotal shifts, and momentum. We don't deliver products, although we do have products, but we mainly sell services. And the people that work with us, whether they're small or large, they want more clarity. This is what they want, not just necessarily what they need. It is what they want. Because remember, people buy what they want, not necessarily what they need. So they want clarity, they want pivotal shifts, and they want momentum. So that became our promise, Margaret and I, from years and years and years ago. The Providence Security, the promise was 5 minutes response time in a sea of 2.5 hours, right? So having a promise means that you understand what you're offering and what problems you're solving, and mainly who your ideal client is and what they absolutely want out. Apple, people do business with Apple, they do business with early adopters, right? We Apple people, we are, if you go Mac, there's a whole thing, if you go Mac, you'll never go back, right? So they bank on really appealing to early adopters. When you appeal to early adopters with a promise of always busting the status quo, then eventually you'll appeal to everybody, because you're going with one piece of the highway first. So your promise should definitely be an answer to your client's biggest issues or biggest desires, so that when you actually say, here's our promise, here's what makes us different, and here's why people choose us over anyone else, there is no room for them to go, I don't know, unless they don't resonate with you, which is part messaging, right? So if personality and messaging, if they don't resonate, they don't resonate. They're not your ideal client. But having a clear promise, 20-minute delivery, pizza delivery, or it's free. Why in your right mind would you go with another company, assuming that they're all similar in terms of awesomeness of pizza? When they came out with that won them a lot of business, because people are like, what do we got to lose? Pizza, it's good pizza. It's going to arrive within 20 minutes. Yay. Instead of 45 minutes, we're all hungry. And if it doesn't, yay, it's free, right? So again, a promise can be a delight to your clients, or it can be an answer to absolutely what they need. And when you're clear on that, once again, it's a bit of a perfect storm.
Great, thank you. Alex is asking, I believe the question is directed to you, Isabelle. What's the largest client or entrepreneur revenue growth you have seen as a result of you working with that client? I'm not sure this is something you can disclose.
I can't disclose who, but I can disclose what it was. And within with a company that we're still working with, within an hour and a half, a year and a half, we're good, but we're not that good. Within a year and a half, she went from 0 to 7 figures.
7 figures is
over $1 million.
between $1 million and between $1 million and 10 million.
Correct. And she literally, within a year and a half, went from 0 revenue to over $1 million. And a larger company that we're working with, we're in the process of 10xing them right now. And they're a large company. So that would equal to many, many millions of dollars. But again, you know, with our Build to Rock program, some clients have doubled their business in 3 months. Some clients have 25% increase their revenue in a few months, and that's what they wanted, right? So it's not always the largest that counts, because at the end of the day, if she made $1 million and invested $1.5 million or spent $1.5 million to make the million, who the hell cares about the 10xing, right? But positioning has the power to put you in the eyesight, right, in the eye line of your ideal clients, in a way that more of them will say yes. That's what it does.
Thanks, Isabelle. Question for Deidre. How do entrepreneurs choose the optimum social media platforms?
Well, usually it depends on their comfort level. So normally what I'll say is, if you are just getting involved in social media for your business and it's something that you haven't had a lot of success with, I start with, where are you most comfortable? Not even where your clients are, because these days everybody's kind of distilled through everything. So it's about getting really good at one platform. So understanding it, knowing how it is you best show up on there, the techniques that you can use to grow your following, how are you getting engagement, how are you interacting with the people that you want to. And just, it's so much about comfort and seeing yourself as an expert in that particular platform. And then as you grow, so can your reach, and you can expand to other different locations. In terms of just generally for most businesses right now, I say as an entrepreneur, you need to be on LinkedIn with your own personal profile, whether you have a company page or not. LinkedIn is not just an HR site anymore. It is a place where you can show up for thought leadership, and there's tons of networking opportunities. So being an entrepreneur and not being on LinkedIn, again, it doesn't matter what your industry is. It's really important to be present for yourself. And right now, the fastest growing in terms of just general business, if you took a big average, would be Instagram. And basically every industry is now present on Instagram, and because of their fast growth techniques and range of ages that are participating, it's a really great place to start if you aren't comfortable or you haven't really been present on social. And then as far as Facebook goes, I treat it like the yellow pages of social media right now. It's got awesome capabilities for ads if you know how to do them, and if you build up some expertise in running ads. They are by far the least expensive, because you can leverage all of the data that Facebook collects on all of us, and you can leverage a lot of really great targeting when you use ads. But again, that's a learning curve. So it's for ease of use, go somewhere where you feel comfortable, get to know it, be present. It's more important that you show up than knowing where you're showing up. You need to be somewhere. Start somewhere.
Deidre. Isabelle, earlier in our interview, we talked about clarity and its huge benefit for those who are super clear. Can you provide us with an example of how positioning clarity has had a huge impact in a company's revenue?
Well, yeah, we're working with an engineering firm right now, and they've never had the clarity. Out of being in business for about 80 years, they've never had the clarity of what made them different. And if you actually to look at a pencil case, let me grab it, because my example is going to make sense. Where is my pencil case? Okay, So what we did is we worked with them, and these are all the things that they do well and they offer, and that's the pencil case. And they were talking to me about, you know, hey, what they do well and what they do differently, and they don't know, right? They're like, hey, Isabelle, in many, many years, we've worked with many people and we've never, ever found an X factor. And I'm like, well, I've never lost a battle with an X factor, so you're on. So what we did is they've talked to us about one particular piece. We're not asking to invent something necessarily, to put something new to put in the X factor box. Sometimes it's something you guys already have to actually, most of the time, actually, it's something you already have that needs to be rejigged and repositioned and rebottled differently. So with them, we nailed their X factor on a 2-day retreat. In the first morning, they were gobsmacked. And that X factor they left millions of dollars on the table as a result of not having this clarity. And they've already, in just a few months of working together, they've already nailed larger and better projects as a result of the clarity, not only the clarity they gained through the whole process that we did, but specifically with the clarity of the X factor and their promise, because now they had language that resonated and that made sense. And people went, oh, geez, you know, yes, I want me some of that. Meanwhile, they've always done it that way, but they never positioned it forward in a way that would actually get people to go, that's a huge benefit. Why would I say no to that? So that's an example of that I can give that is concrete, that the clarity has gotten them to actually just pivot a few things in their proposals in the way they actually communicate, and then they're getting more yeses.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And Nancy says there are 4 personality styles. Am I correct in assuming that there are 4 distinct ways that people resonate? If so, could you name them?
Yeah, you know, there's probably more than 4 ways that people resonate. People resonate with words, people resonate with energy, people resonate with personality. Mm-hmm. People resonate with, like, more logical people will resonate with a framework or a methodology or something like that, something that is like, walk me through this so I can understand. So more logical resonance. Also, people resonate with people who's given them social proof, like, OMG, I went to see Deidre, and Deidre has been able to help me do this. No matter what you need, just go see Deidre. That people will resonate with, the trust will get built from that. But I do think that people resonate with that, the words, the energy, the personality, and the more logical type of framework. And if you can appeal to more than one of these, again, little perfect storm of magic.
Thank you. Sam asks, what was the exercise the pencil case company, what was the exercise you took them through that enabled them to gain the clarity about their X factor?
That's Isabelle's X factor.
Yeah, I've got a total brain for that. So I had them talk. So they booked a 2-day virtual retreat with us, and I had them talking. I have specific questions that I ask, and it depends. It's never the same questions depending on what they're doing. And from there, I have them talk, and I'm able to recognize when I hear something that goes ding, ding, ding. And most people fight me on it. They go, no, that's not important. I'm like, just give me 2 minutes, you know, humor me. But it's all about getting people to talk about what they do well, what's problematic in their clients, how they save the day often. Like, what do you do to save the day often with your clients? Or what do clients say to you that they really appreciate about working with you? And this particular equation here, I can't share it because it's not launched yet, but it's not launched yet in a global sense. But anyways, that whole line here, it got to them and went, oh my, but we're already doing this. I'm like, I know, but do you actually sell it this way? They're like, no, we hide it. Usually it's something that is hidden or just happening, but not really highlighted. You know, if there's 5 things you offer in a program and you're wondering, what's a bonus I can give? For example, for my Build to Rock program, I often give in the program, there's a website audit. And then I was wondering, what do I give as a bonus for this program? And then I went, why don't I already take something that's already there and highlight it differently? So it's already in the program. People are going to get it. Yet I promote it as, and by joining the program, you will get a website audit. And so it's just sometimes repositioning something. Now, word of caution, this needs to be honest, right? I'm not asking anybody to do something that is not transparent or not honest. It's got to be real. It's got to connect. And most of the time, it's not bottled. You know, when people say, can you bottle that smell? That's the thing is, can you bottle genius? Yes, you can bottle genius. You can give it a name and you can give it a description that people are going to want and love. The answer to that is, so that was a long answer sorry.
Great. Now I've got a last question for each of you, but before we go to the last question, Isabelle, you've got an irresistible offer that you would like to make, right?
I do. I would like an opportunity to help more people with their X factor and their brand foundation. So what we have is the Leap Zone Amplification Program, which is 6 months of private coaching with Deidre and myself in different ways in the program to amplify your online presence by implementing the proven strategies and the best practices that are designed to improve your reach and your influence. It starts with a half-day strategy session where I'm a part of, where we can really nail your brand, the pieces of your brand foundation, such as promise and X factor. And it includes, of course, coaching every month for 6 months, a social media audit, where Deidre is going to look at your social media and actually look at what needs to be eliminated, what needs to be elevated, and what needs to be innovated or added in order to reach more people and also convert. Because it's one thing to reach people, it's another thing to convert, right? Yeah. I will also look at your website from top to bottom and look at where it might not be, most websites are not set up to actually convert. So I will look at it, look at the personality, the content, as well as the placement of the flow of the website to make sure that it is designed to convert. And I'm going to add our access to Mindset Mastery Code program, which is all about mindset to uncover X factor and move the business forward. This program is only by application, and the link to apply, he's got it right there, leapzonestrategies.com/rise. And this will lead you to a needs assessment. You fill out the needs assessment. All you need to actually say in there is that you come from Roger's group, EIN, the Entrepreneurs International Network, and that we will have a personal clarity call with you to ensure that this program is the right fit for you. And then from there, you will have access to the discount based on my relationship here with Roger. So that is, if you want to know more information, I know that it's better to have a live conversation to talk about the logistics and everything else that it includes. The way to do that is just simply to fill out our needs assessment, and myself or Deidre will connect with you to get that set up.
Great, thank you. So the starting point is people click on the link that's in the chat and off they go, right?
Correct, and off they go. They just fill out the needs assessment. Just let us know where you come from in terms of this, where you heard of us, and then we will know that you're eligible for that program.
Great. Deidre, your last question. If you were to leave us with one thing to remember you and remember your brand, what would that thing be?
In your social media, stop trying to be amazing and start trying to be helpful.
Stop trying to be amazing and start trying to be helpful. My mother used to say that all the time. She said, Roger, life's simple. Simply just be kind.
It's true. Social media allows companies to actually be human again, even though the norm is people thinking the opposite. It's actually not true. It's a great tool to connect and to be human and show up.
Beautiful. Thank you, Deidre.
You're welcome.
And Isabelle, your last question.
No, yeah, go ahead.
If you were to leave us with one message, what would that message about branding be? The one big thing.
Yep. It would be, you got to know and you got to own what you stand for and position that in a way that will get people to go, where the hell have you been all my life? So do the work. Branding is not a logo and a website and a color scheme, although those things are all important. It's about really understand why someone would choose you over anyone else, regardless of price. And when you have that, business is a hell of a lot easier to generate, and growth is possible. And then the next step is scaling will be possible. Right? So, because if you're not positioned, then there's no visibility. If there's no visibility, there's no impact. If there's no impact, there's no resonance. And if there's no resonance, well, then there's no growth. And there's no point to that. And
beautiful. A beautiful summary. Thank you both very, very much.
You're welcome.
And attendees,
Thanks for having us.
thank you for your participation. Your questions were all great.
Good.
Well done.
My pleasure. And I always, as you know, Roger, we're always happy to come to your community. You've got amazing people. And if you guys have questions, you know where to find us. That needs assessment is the fastest way to get to us, regardless if it's for the program or not. That's the fastest.
Just fill out the needs assessment and we can chat with you.
Great.